Welcome to this explainer. If you've been trying to figure out who the real threats are in college football this year, well, you're going to want to grab your notepad. Today, we're putting on our sports desk hats to break down literally one of the most fascinating narratives in the country right now. We're talking about the number 3 ranked St. Marian Nomads. In year 3 under Coach Don Ritchie, this team has gone through a completely wild midseason evolution. I mean, going from an absolute disaster of a loss early on to morphing into legitimate national championship contenders. We're going to dive into exactly how they pulled it off, looking at the raw numbers, the key playmakers, and what the gauntlet ahead looks like. Here is our rundown for today's explainer. 1. The wake-up call. 2. Their explosive offensive engine. 3. The highs and lows of the defense. 4. Handing out some midseason hardware. And 5. The high-stakes Big Ten playoff picture. All right, let's get right into it. Starting off with part 1, the wake-up call, or how they bounced back from the absolute abyss. 73. Just let that sink in for a second. Giving up 73 points is a scoreline usually reserved for, college basketball games, not top-tier college football. That humiliating 73-27 loss on the road against number 5 Auburn brutally exposed this defense early in the season. And honestly, a lot of people were wondering if the Nomads had just taken a massive step backward after making the college football playoff last year. But instead of folding up shop, this total embarrassment served as Coach Ritchie's ultimate wake-up call. He tweaked the scheme, challenged his guys, and man, did they respond. And look at how they responded. Following that disaster at Auburn, the Nomads just went on an absolute tear, rattling off 5 straight impressive wins against some major programs. They took down Michigan, beat number 6 Penn State, survived a crazy shootout with Colorado, and then dispatched Georgia Tech, Indiana, and Baylor. This incredible 5-game winning streak rocketed them right back inside the top 3 nationally. It just proves this team doesn't fold under pressure. They use it as fuel to forge a totally new identity. Moving on to part 2. We've got an explosive offensive engine fueled by the Perez-Campbell duo. So let's talk about the drastic evolution of quarterback Devin Campbell. His season averages across 7 starts paint a picture of some real early struggles. We're talking 1,255 yards, 12 touchdowns, but a pretty concerning 9 interceptions with a 62% completion rate. Frankly, he looked completely overwhelmed against Auburn. But contrast that with his near-perfect game last week against Colorado. Are you kidding me? He went 16 for 18, throwing for 306 yards, 4 touchdowns, an 88% completion rate, and a staggering 305 passer rating. The pure talent is undeniable. And if you're tracking the Heisman race, this newfound consistency is the only thing keeping him from becoming a heavy favorite. But hey, while Campbell is clearly finding his rhythm, the true identity of St. Marian is basically summed up in one sentence. The offense now runs through him. And that him is superstar running back Eric Perez. Meet the ground game monsters. Eric Perez currently leads the Big Ten in rushing with 815 yards and 11 touchdowns through 7 games, just churning out an incredible 6.7 yards per carry. He is the engine of this team. But right behind him, don't sleep on Dion Massey. He's quietly becoming this elite complementary piece with 445 yards and an absolutely explosive 9.1 yards per carry. Honestly, every single time Massey touches the football, a big play seems to happen. This backfield combination makes St. Marian easily the most balanced team in the conference. Of course, a truly explosive offense needs balance in the air too. Major Taylor is the undisputed WR1 and Campbell's favorite target, leading the pack with 396 yards and 6 touchdowns. Then you've got Ross Mitchell providing that really reliable possession presence with 260 yards. But you've got to pay special attention to Nate Tuggle. He's got 224 yards, sure, but he's doing that on just 14 catches. That's a massive 16 yards per reception. Literally every catch feels like a home run. Throw in reliable tight ends Michael Williams and Errol Brick Jr., who combine for 4 touchdowns, and you've got this highly efficient red zone offense that can score from anywhere on the field. All right, pivoting to part 3, the front 7, secondary flaws, and the defensive enforcers. Let's start with what's actually working on defense. This transformed unit displays just incredible balanced production. They fly around the field like a swarm of bees. E. Brown leads the way with 48 tackles, closely followed by Mcockner with 47, the super physical corner Ty Livingston with 45, Jay Hopes with 41, and D. Urbic with 39. So what does this tell us? When your top 5 tacklers are clustered this closely together, it means you have a unit that swarms to the football collectively and creates absolute chaos for opposing offenses. But it's not all sunshine. This defense has a pretty glaring Achilles heel. It's almost a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. On one hand, you have an incredibly elite front seven. Players like D. Urbic, who has 13 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, are practically paying rent in opposing backfields and forcing negative plays. But on the other hand, you've got this vulnerable secondary depth. They really struggle to defend elite quarterbacks. I mean, Colorado exposed this by throwing for 443 yards against them. Why is this so crucial? Because if you're an opposing offensive coordinator in the college football playoff, this is exactly where you're going to attack. This secondary depth absolutely must improve. Up next, Part 4, handing out mid-season hardware in the trophy room. Let's do a rapid-fire rundown of the St. Marion Trophy Room. Team MVP undeniably goes to Eric Perez, the absolute engine of that rushing attack. Offensive MVP has to be Devin Campbell for completely changing the trajectory of this season since the Auburn loss. Breakout players, we're splitting that between Campbell and deep threat Nate Tuggle. Coach of the year is firmly Don Ritchie. But honestly, the real story here is defensive MVP Mcockner. With 47 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, and 3 interceptions, Chen is literally everywhere at once. He is a super legitimate Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Now, every great team has a guy who doesn't quite get the flashy headlines. Our unsung hero is defensive tackle Kevin Wynn. His 22 tackles and 12 tackles for loss are really solid, but his true impact lies in his interior pressure. He constantly collapses the pocket, creating those highlight reel opportunities for linebackers like Mcockner. Wynn's presence basically forces offenses to completely alter their game plans, even if he's not posting massive sack numbers himself. Moving to our final section, Part 5, the Big Ten playoff picture and the look ahead. Welcome to the absolute gauntlet of the current Big Ten. At the top, you have St. Marion sitting at 6-1, looking like the most balanced team in the conference. But right on their heels, the undefeated, incredibly consistent number 4 Texas Tech. And you definitely cannot count out the big surprise story, the number 11 CJ Eagles. Their quarterback, Luke Chandler, leads the Big Ten with an absurd 2,824 passing yards. Then you've got number 15 Ohio State, who are quietly rebounding and firmly in the race. And finally, Texas A&M, sitting at 5-3. They are battle-tested, ultra-physical, and frankly a team absolutely nobody wants to play late in the year. So how do the Nomads actually navigate this? Well, step 1 is Week 9 against VRU, which should be a pretty comfortable win. But step 2, that's the massive one, the undefeated Texas Tech showdown. This basically feels like a de facto Big Ten championship preview that is really going to test St. Marion's newfound consistency. Step 3 is surviving the always dangerous Ohio State and that super physical Texas A&M squad. And finally, step 4 is the 5-1-3 Classic against Cincinnati, a massive rivalry game where, as we all know, records basically go to die. Every single remaining game carries massive playoff implications. Which leaves us with this ultimate question to ponder. Are the St. Mary Nomads national champions, or are they playoff pretenders? Will their punishing ground game and elite front seven culminate in a title run, bringing a championship back to Avondale? Or will that vulnerable secondary we talked about cost them everything against an elite passing attack in the playoffs? Look, that Auburn loss feels like a distant memory now, but the true test starts right here. Keep your eyes on the Nomads. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the most compelling stories in sports.